G'day punters, just another short episode. This one I'm going to do some wiring upgrades. These two USB plugs already got power to them. They're auxiliary inputs for the PVS 9-inch head unit. This double one USB hasn't been wired. The fog lights, which is really for the DSL, hasn't been wired. The water pump one has to go across the other switch panel, I'll show you shortly. Air compressor, there's an air compressor switch behind this dash panel, so I have to wire into this switch, and my air horns needs to be wired up as well. I'm doing that just to isolate the air horns. Fog lights, I need to do that because that's a regulatory requirement here in Queensland. When you have your headlights illuminated, the DSL lights are meant to turn off. Now the water pump, I've got that over here. That's that little nondescript button. So that water pump switch is going to come across here, and I've got to transfer the wiring across to that. I'm also going to move the auxiliary temp sensor for the PVS head unit, which is part of the TBMS module that PVS sell. I'm going to move it. It's behind the glove box at the moment, so it picks up temperature if you have the heater on or the air conditioning on, and also if you've been sitting around for a while, it gets pretty hot behind there. So I'm actually going to move that sensor to the back wall of the Cruiser. Just thought I'd show you why I'm changing the location of the auxiliary temperature sensor. You can see it there, 36 degrees centigrade. The outside temperature is 29 degrees centigrade. First job, I just popped the head unit. It's no big deal there. This switch panel has two 10mm bolts down the bottom there, and a couple of little clips up the top. They'll pop out easy enough. I've already popped the switch out the other side, and this has got clips in it as well. That's the switch there. It was actually glued in, super glue, top and bottom. And I had a bit of silastic on the side, hold it in place. Anyhow, how to get this switch panel out now? So on the water pump switch, I've put that in now. It seems to, you can hear the relay clicking. This switch panel goes in pretty easy. There's just some slots. The clips go in through there. Just got to make sure you put it in the bottom part of the panel in first. Line up with those little tangs. You can see a tang probably there, and there's another one just over the other side. So what I've done is I've popped this bottom panel first, so you get the top one in. That's all cool. That was a nice and easy one. Just been doing some research on the AOB compressor isolation switch wiring. See, there's 5 terminals on the back. There's one wire there that I've pulled out. Both these blacks are just earth. I found a good forum, it's a Yankee one, about replacing the ARB isolation switch with an AOB switch, which is what I've got, which comes with 4 wires. I'll put a link in the description about that forum description about changing those switches across. In essence, what I'm going to do is these 2 black wires are going to hook up to the black wire for the AOB switch. The red-yellow wire there is going to hook up to the red wire on here on the AOB switch. The red wire is going to hook up to the, on the ARB switch, is going to hook up to the green wire on the AOB switch, and that leaves this blue-white wire, which is going to hook up to the blue wire on the AOB switch. Something you've got to be aware of with the ARB compressors and stuff. There's actually diodes in the loom, so don't cut the loom to make it shorter, because the diodes are actually an important factor in the switching in these circuits for the compressors. I finished wiring that air compressor wiring. That's the little loom there. As you all know if you've been watching my videos, I've crimped them and soldered the crimps on, and I've put heat shrink around. This black tape here is just the 2 negative wires from the ARB loom, and a double joiner to a single spade bit, which goes into the AOB switch in the back here. But indications are at the moment, well, the light works. Just doing a little bit more research on the wiring of these switches for the DSL fog lights and the air horn relay that I've got. Both of them are positively switched. What that simply means is, like for the air horns, the trigger wire for the relay is positive, so when I press the electric horns inside the car, there's 12 volts at the trigger wire. If it was negatively earth, the trigger wire would be positive all the time. The trigger wire for the fog lights, or the DSL more precisely, is going to be the low beam. So it'll be a low beam trigger. When the low beam turns on, it should turn off the DSL light. The trigger wire will only have 12 volts, the low beam wire, once the low beam is on. So I have a positively wired vehicle. Now the problem I have with this AOB wiring diagram, it has the switch between the trigger wire and the relay. What I want to do is reduce the amount of wiring I have, because I've already wired some stuff up, and move the switch in between 85 on the relay and earth. From the relay it'll go to the red wire on the switch, and then the green wire will go to earth. The blue wire, as I've mentioned, will go to dash lights, and the black wire will go to earth as well. The only thing that makes this a little bit more complicated is with the DSL lights. I don't have a 4-pin relay, I have a 5-pin relay. One of the pins doesn't get used. They're called a single pole double throw relay. A little diagram here, I'll show you. So the trigger is the low beam lights. When that goes on, it activates the solenoid, goes to earth, pulls the plunger across, stops power going up to the fog lights, and goes to a dead pole. Ordinarily, when the low beam's off, the plunger will be out, and there'll be power going from the power source to the fog lights with a 5-amp fuse in it, of course. And for the DSL, that earth wire, that's going to be run up to the switch to the red wire on the AOB switch. The green wire will go to earth, black wire will go to earth, and as I say, the blue wires will go to dash. I've just picked up an earth. It's in behind here, 10mm bolt. I've checked continuity between there and the chassis is a good earth, so I've gone into there. I'll have to trim this wire up and connect it to those other wires that I need for earth in this switch panel. Well, that's my negative wire soldered, and a bit of heat shrink on it too, just to protect that joint. Okay, what I've got is a piece of gash 2-core that I picked up, left over from another job. One of them's marked, so I can tell which one's which, but anyhow, these are the trigger wires that are going to come from the relays. I've just wired them into the red wires on that switch plugs. Heat shrink, of course. Last wire to solder. I'm just doing dash lights now, and there's already a splice in here. That was for cigarette lighter illumination light. So the green one is the dash lights. I've checked the voltage. So I'm just going to solder straight into there with that one. Don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but that's that solder joint that I just did for the dash lights. That was the last wire to be soldered inside the dash. That's it there. Again, zippy tight just to hold it all tight. Lightforce twin USB power point. This is the old cigarette lighter power point, or plug. Anyhow, there's already a wire spliced into it for the USB plugs on the right hand side of the dash. So I've just soldered straight into there. Somebody once said to me, if you can't tie knots, tie lots. Well, put an insulation tape on that, put some zippy ties around it as well, just to hold the wires together. That's the wiring all tidied up now. That one goes for the aerial switch up and down, just there. So I'll plug that in as soon as I get closer. But the only other thing I want to do is, I want to just run a bit of silastic down the side of these switches so that they don't move around so much and rattle. That's the dash back together now. That's probably almost as far as I'm going to go today. Yeah, I've still got to get another blank for over here. I've just got to tidy up this wire. This wire's going to end up in the engine bay. The trigger wires for the horn and the DSL lights that go up to the relays. back and do this rewiring again. I'm just going to, as I've mentioned, relocate temperature battery monitoring system wiring. Just taking the glove box out and just seeing just how easy that is to pull out. Get it out of the way. I've got to get a panel down here off. There's a little plastic screw where I am at the moment. Just undo that. That's it there. Pull this kick panel out. That's that out of the way. Got to pull up this kick panel as well. I've just got a screwdriver, just held them by a couple of clips. Wiring I mentioned previously was just up in here. This comes off the temperature battery monitoring system, and that's the auxiliary heat sensor there. You can see there's a little bit of like resin on the top of that. That must be the sensor. So I'm going to run this wire back down through the back there, down through the kick panel, along the channel here, through the back. I'm going to end up, I'll pull this kick panel up as well, run it back up here. See, there's some wiring there already, so that's where I'm going to put it in with. And I'm going to stick it up the back here. I think I'll probably stick it on one of these screws, mounting screws. So it's up there out of the way. I've run that loom now. You can see there's a red zippy tie there. Blue zippy tie there, runs across there, drops down the kick panel, comes down here, got sitting behind the kick panel, runs down here, right along this loom in a sill. Same there, up to here. Then I've put some air conditioning insulation tape across, and I've mounted it there. The 2-core loom that I had in for the switches, I've run it through here now, and it's got some split tube on it. It runs down underneath, around here. This is the split tube here, comes up. I've just tinned this one. This is my horn relay. I'm about to, I've already taken the earth off. The earth wire was that one, and I put a crimp on that. I stick it on the earth side of the relay, and that's the air horn solenoid isolator. I call it an isolator switch now. Wired up, and this other side's for the DSL lights. I've got to put a relay and run a few more wires for that. I've pulled my air box out just to get into the back of the headlight again. Low beam. I've spliced into there and soldered a splice into it. Stuck some heat shrink on where I could. Some insulation tape. I might just tape that up a bit more. Run the loom. Comes back up. This is the trigger wire to turn the DSL lights off. It is. And I've got the other side of the trigger wire, this black wire, which goes up to the switch inside. And then I've got power in and power out that side and power in that side. So it normally runs when the low beam is not on. As soon as the low beam's on, it'll activate a solenoid in there, and because it's single pole double throw, it'll isolate the power from the DSLs. DSL relay mounted now. It's all fitted up. The DSL lights have an isolation switch, which is this one here. When I push it in, that should create a circuit from the low beam trigger wire back to earth behind the dash. So when I have low beam on, that should turn the DSL lights off. DSL lights off. Now if I push that isolation switch, we'll call it that, fog light switch, back into the normal position. The DSL lights will be on. Finished wiring up the 2 USB point there, and that works. The boss has checked that out. The inputs, USB inputs for the PVS head unit, they work. We've checked that already as well. This is just redundant at the moment, it's not hooked up to anything. The air compressor works. Now the air horn switch is going to work similar to the DSL fog light isolator as well. It's triggered by the electric horns for the car, and this will create a circuit in either that off position or the on position once the horns are blown, not otherwise. What that means is that if there's a circuit created once the switch is in either the off position or the on position, the solenoid down the back near the air horns will activate and allow air to pass through to the air horns. In the other position, there won't be an earth circuit there, so the electric horns will sound by themselves. And the lights turn on too when the parkers turn on. You would have seen the USB light turn on, blue. Fog lights, air compressor, air horn. I'll turn it off again. Same with the water pump. Turn it off.